Welcome to Fast Track Gains. I'm here to help you accelerate your gains. This is the fifth and the final episode of my fifth series, Fat Loss. As I mentioned in the first episode, the extended topics behind fat loss can be quite deep and complex, and that's arguably the main reason why fat loss can be very confusing to so many people. And in this episode, I'm going to present some of the most interesting extended topics behind fat loss. Those topics do not usually get mentioned in the fat loss discussions, but they're definitely part of the big picture. And if you can wrap your head around those topics, instead of only looking at body fat from pure fat loss angle, you are going to have a much better understanding of the importance of body fat from other angles as well. But before I start, please like this video and subscribe to this channel. And without further ado, it's time for me to present all the extended topics as the official wrap-up to the whole fat loss series. Topic 1. Personal fat threshold hypothesis. This is probably the most important extended topic out of all fat loss topics. As body fat is closely related to your metabolic health, the medical community always has a vested interest in studying the influence of body fat on type 2 diabetes. However, although on population level, there's a strong positive correlation between BMI and the risk of developing type 2 diabetes, meaning the higher your BMI, the more likely you are going to develop type 2 diabetes. On personal level, there are huge variances between individuals. On one end of the spectrum, there are individuals who are well over 300 pounds, carrying a lot of body fat, morbidly obese, but are still metabolically healthy and don't have type 2 diabetes. On the other end of the spectrum, there are individuals which we call TOFI or skinny fat, who are well within the normal BMI range or even considered underweight. Yet they're suffering from type 2 diabetes. And the extreme case of this end is a condition which we call lipodystrophy. People born with this rare condition basically have no ability to store any subcutaneous body fat and are forced to store all their fat viscerally. And because of that, they can have very low body fat percentage and look extremely lean and even muscular like jacked bodybuilders, but they're suffering from type 2 diabetes. So obviously, we need something else other than just BMI to reconcile the contradiction between extremely high body fat percentage and no type 2 diabetes condition, and extremely low body fat percentage and having type 2 diabetes condition. And this is how personal fat threshold hypothesis was developed. The personal fat threshold hypothesis suggests that individuals have a specific limit of fat they can store before experiencing negative health effects like insulin resistance or type 2 diabetes. This limit, known as the personal fat threshold, varies from person to person, and exceeding it can lead to ectopic fat accumulation in the liver and the pancreas, disrupting insulin function and potentially triggering diabetes. And the most important takeaway from this topic is this: whatever your personal fat threshold is, you still have to pick your own poison. Because people with low personal fat threshold do not get fat easily. But the moment they gain a tiny bit more fat, then all of a sudden they will develop all kinds of metabolic diseases. People with high personal fat threshold do not develop metabolic diseases easily, but they get fat extremely easily. That's why you can call your personal fat threshold always as a cursed blessing. Topic 2. Body fat set point theory. This is probably the second most important topic out of all topics. The body fat set point theory, initially suggested by William Kennedy in 1953, and later developed and popularized by William Bennett and Joe Gurin in 1982, is a natural extension of the mechanism of homeostasis. The set point theory suggests that humans have a naturally preferred weight range that their bodies strive to maintain. This theory proposes that various physiological mechanisms, including hormonal and metabolic changes, work together to resist deviations from this set point. When an individual loses weight, the body may compensate by increasing the appetite and decreasing metabolism, attempting to drive weight back towards the set point. So, basically, this theory has given everyone who fails to maintain long-term fat loss result a perfectly scientific excuse by saying this. You see, it is not my fault. I have tried my best. It's my body fighting against my own will. So don't blame me. Well, you have not completely got me there. There are studies showing that people do not compensate all of the caloric deficit induced by exercise. And you may even lower your set point after doing cardio for years. That's why I mentioned multiple times in previous episodes, think cardio training as the counterbalance. And in here, once again, you have a much better chance of achieving a new balance of your body fat set point with cardio training. Topic 3. Metabolic damage and metabolic capacity. These two terms, often referenced in bodybuilding community, are no less important to normal population who want to have safer or easier fat loss plans. Metabolic damage is the biggest reason why it is never a good idea to be fast and furious with your fat loss. This is a term often used to describe a slowed or less efficient metabolism, often associated with weight loss resistance or the inability to lose weight effectively. It's frequently linked to rapid weight loss, also known as crash dieting or yo-yo dieting, where the body enters a state of starvation mode and conserves energy, making it harder to lose weight later. Perhaps the best example of metabolic damage is still the follow-up study on the Biggest Loser participants. Most of them are suffering from metabolic damage. On the flip side, the term metabolic capacity, or more precisely, increasing your metabolic capacity, refers to a very slow and steady but deliberate effort of increasing daily calories whilst not putting on body fat. For example, in the first few days, you may add 50 calories to test out your body's response. If your body weight stays the same, then after a few more days, you add another 25 calories on top of 50 calories. And if the weight still stays the same, you add another 25 calories, and so on and so forth. Effectively, increasing metabolic capacity means how much you can get away with extra calories. This method taps into the body's homeostasis mechanism again. As the body prefers to maintain the current weight, it will waste small calories by non-exercise activity thermogenesis, or NEAT for short. And as the approach is very delicate and requires high level of monitoring, this method generally only happens within the bodybuilding community where all the foods are carefully weighed and prepared. However, provided you have the dedication and patience, you can increase your metabolic capacity by a couple hundred calories independent of your muscle mass increase. This means you have a bigger capacity to create a bigger caloric deficit, which will make your next fat loss cutting phase much easier. Topic 4. The evil trifecta. This combo is the kryptonite to the law of satiety because it completely overrides our physiological programming. Again, this is a term coined by Ted Naiman. It refers to the foods of high carb, high fat, high energy combination. Chips, cookies, donuts, chocolate, ice cream, peanut butter, all the most obesogenic foods you can think of all follow this recipe. They are not just high in sugar, they are not just high in fat, they're high in both and super high in energy density. In nature, high fat never comes with high carbs. It only comes with high protein, and high carbs only come by themselves. And as a result, Our physiological programming is well trained to regulate how much we should be eating high-fat only foods or high-carb only foods. That's why you rarely find the idea of drinking a bottle of oil or eating a bowl of plain rice very appealing, because our sense of satiety is based on natural foods. However, as the combination of the evil trifecta is extremely unnatural, it completely hijacks the brain and overrides the satiety signal. Because your brain has not been trained to deal with this evil trifecta. Instead of feeling satiated, it just keeps wanting more and more of the evil trifecta. In fact, the only two exceptions to the rule of high fat never comes with high carbs in nature are nuts and mother's milk. And they're all meant for growth of new lives. That ought to tell you how wickedly powerful this combination is for promoting weight growth. The takeaway from this topic: fats alone don't make you fat easily, and carbs alone don't make you fat easily. But high carbs and high fats together, yeah, they make you fat too easily. Topic 5: liquid calories. This is a blind spot to the law of satiety. It seems like our body can only regulate the consumption of foods in solid forms very well, because it takes time to chew the food, swallow it down, and it's going to sit in your stomach for a while before it is being digested. All the processes above will send satiety feedback to your brain. But when you drink something that contains a lot of calories, as you don't have to chew or swallow so much, and the liquid only stays in your stomach for a very short period of time, your brain receives little satiety feedback, and therefore it is extremely difficult for your body to tell how much liquid you have just consumed. And as a result, calories in liquid forms are very easy to overconsume. For example, you're going to feel quite full after eating a few oranges or a few slices of cheese. But if you drink orange juice or milk, unless your stomach cannot expand anymore because of too much water, it is very hard for you to actively stop drinking orange juice or milk. Maybe the existence of water is just too important to life, that physiology has made this decision that any liquid calories are only going to be registered as water consumption in our brain. But to anyone who wants to lose body fat, just stay away from liquid calories, because your body cannot detect their existence. Topic 6: body fat and connective tissue. Although excessive body fat does not contribute positively to your health and aesthetics, a reasonable body fat percentage is very important for your overall health. Thermal insulation, hormonal production, organ protection, and many other functions. There's a reason why fat is essential for life. And here, I want to introduce one of my theories of the coexistence of fat cells and connective tissues. And for more information on how much importance your connective tissue mean to your training, please refer to my previous episode, Achilles heel, the connective tissue part 1. In short, how strong or how big you can get might be more dependent on your connective tissues than your muscle tissues. Now, back to fat cells. If you make a simple observation of any lean meat cuts, for example, a piece of rump, you are going to find that generally muscle cells form an area together and stand by themselves, whereas connective tissues tend to mix with fat cells together and exist at the rim of muscles. Based on this observation and the fact that human flesh is quite similar to beef, it would be reasonable to assume that when we go on fat loss journey and lose a substantial amount of body fat, we're also going to lose a substantial amount of connective tissues as well, because they've just lost the cohabitant body fat. And that's probably the best explanation to why you will feel so weak and why you can get injured so easily when you get extremely lean, because your connective tissues are also very scarce at the same moment. The importance of this so-called coexistence of body fat and connective tissues really should be brought to mainstream fitness awareness to remind people that in order to train safely and effectively, you really should never go too low on your body fat percentage. Topic 7. Muscle-centric medicine. For the last topic, we're going to deviate from fat loss focus and shift our focus to muscle. The term muscle-centric medicine may sound very masculine, but it was actually invented by a woman, a brilliant female physician, Dr. Gabrielle Lyon. Mentored by the legendary protein researcher Don Layman and having a deep interest in fitness and training herself, Dr. Gabrielle Lyon argues that for too long we have been paying our attention to the wrong part, excessive body fat, because excessive is only a relative term, and when you have insufficient muscle mass, even normal body fat mass will become excessive. So instead, the problem that really needs to be addressed is insufficient muscle mass, or as Dr. Lyon says it herself, you are not overfat, you are under-muscled. Once you build enough muscle mass, not only will you solve all the problems caused by excessive body fat, but you will reap off so many other benefits that pure fat loss can never provide. And in a society where everyone is focusing on fat loss, muscle-centric medicine has lent an entire new perspective to address all the prevalent chronic diseases with a much better solution. Alright, that officially wraps up the whole series of fat loss. I hope you have enjoyed this episode and learned a thing or two. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments and I will be happy to answer all your questions. Thank you for watching this video, and I look forward to seeing a leaner version of you in the next video. Peace out.